In this chapter, I'm going to show you how to layer fabric, paint, paper, and all kinds of good stuff to build a richly textured surface. So let's start with our blank canvas and just choose a color to be your base layer. Keep in mind that very little of this color is going to show through. Some of it will show through, but not a lot. You do want to pay attention to the colors that you use and make sure you pick colors that work well together, but don't really worry too much about it. So since I have no paint on this canvas, I'm going to make it easy and just squirt some paint out and just cover the entire surface of the canvas all the way around. Just going to cover the whole thing. Very sloppy, doesn't matter, just get your good coverage. And then once the whole thing is covered, don't worry about the sides, you can fill those in later. You're going to just set that aside to dry. And it shouldn't take too long because we didn't do a real high quality thick coat. Once that's completely dry, you're going to choose some pieces to add as your first collage layer. Now the biggest thing to look for when you select pieces for this layer is texture, because the majority of the pieces here on the bottom are going to get covered up with paint and other items. So don't worry too much if the colors don't look nice together, if you don't really like the way they work together. Just look for texture. So I've chosen a nice collection of textured pieces, a little bit of pattern, but as I said, a lot of that pattern is not going to show up. I have this wonderful web-like paper that I'm going to use. I've got a couple of different paper pieces, some sheet music, an old map piece, some polka dotted heavier scrapbook paper, a piece of fabric, and some rickrack. So I'm going to use all of these pieces together, and I adhere those by just opening up my matte gel medium, and I'm going to use a generous amount of that on the back of each piece. Now with this meshy piece, I can just lay it on the surface and add the matte gel medium right on top of that. I'm going to cover the whole thing, and if you've got some big goobers of matte gel medium, just leave it, because again, that's going to add some great texture. So don't worry about it. This is very sloppy, and you really cannot make a mistake with this method. And I'm going to add another layer here. With the paper, I'm just going to coat the entire surface of the back, plop it down on the canvas, and then put a thin coat on top. Now one thing that you might be concerned about is after your piece starts to dry, you might notice that some edges peel up or some bubbles form under the paper. Don't worry about that. We're going to work with that later on in this technique. So that's a good mistake. We don't want to even touch that. Just let it happen.